The Power Moms Network, empowering moms to lift the world.
Welcome. I'm Riley Karsh.
I'm Tovah Copan.
We are thrilled to bring you the We Go Boldly podcast.
Let's talk big burning questions, life changes, and maybe a bit of personal business.
Let's be bold and brave together. Are you ready?
I am. Here comes the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to We Go Boldly, the podcast. This is your co-host, Riley, and I am here today with Tovah, as always, and we will say hello to her in a minute. But first, I'm going to yell it because I didn't remember to last time. It's interview day. Very excited. I love interview day, as you all know. It is one of my favorite parts of our show. I love hearing people's stories. I love asking them awkward, uncomfortable questions about their childhood trauma, as everyone knows. I want to know it all. So before we dive into who our guest is today, and I'm actually very excited about this topic. But before we get into all that, let me say hello to Tovah, ask her how she's doing, and see what's going on with her today. Hey, Tovah.
Hi. Well, I decided that I was close enough to Easter that I could open up a bag of jelly beans. So
fantastic.
My stomach is also empty, but now has jelly beans in it. And so I'm not sure how I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I hid them now because I don't really need any more jelly beans until Easter. But
I relate so hard to this entire story.
But all things being equal, I would say that is good. And I'm also really excited for this guest. I don't even want to like chit chat because I'm just like so excited to talk to her.
I do want to say I'm not having jelly beans this year in solidarity with my son, who has a palate expander in all of a sudden and cannot eat any sticky candies.
God, I was like, oh no, what did the jelly bean industry do to somebody? Because like, listen, I don't go to Chick-fil-A and I'm okay with that.
Same,
like,
same.
That's fine. But like, don't take my
jelly beans. No, he just can't eat any. And he is like, I can't tell you how many times he's told me about what is the Easter Bunny going to do if he can't bring him jelly beans? Like, how is this all working? And did I text him? Which I obviously did text the Easter Bunny to resolve this issue.
Well, yeah. I mean, you need to give the Easter Bunny a heads up.
Yeah. Anyway, that's my story, jelly beans, and yours. Let's move on to our guest for the day. I am really excited about this topic, and I am very excited to talk to our guest. Before we introduce her, I'm just going to remind everyone this is the season of how to. If you don't know that yet, we're like 20 episodes in. I don't know. We're so far in. But if you haven't noticed, we're talking all about how to live the life you want to be living and like what are the little things out there in the world that are getting in your way. And it's often little things, right, that get in our way of finding the life we want. And not like you find it on a shelf somewhere, you have to build it, but it's those little things that get in the way of us being who we want to be and living the lives we want to live. So we're spending all season talking about this, and I think it's really transformative. And not to toot our own horns, but I really do think this is such an important conversation we're having. So today we have a fantastic guest, and she is here to talk to us about her personal journey, whether she likes it or not. Unfortunately, we always ask these questions. But also she's going to talk to us about the how-tos of like skincare and beauty care and sort of the deeper side of that, which I'm really, really looking forward to. So without further ado, let me introduce your guest for the day, Sophie Marcopoulos. Sophie is a dedicated esthetician, which is a very hard word to say. I'm just putting that out there. Makeup artist and salon owner specializing in wedding makeup and adult acne. With a passion for the intersection of skincare and artistry, she combines science-backed solutions with a keen eye for makeup theory to create highly personalized client experiences. She opened her business, Space Esthetics, with the intention to elevate the standard for beauty businesses in the realms of results, luxury, inclusivity, and the relationships between clients and professionals. Now, there is so much more to Sophie that we're going to get into. I can tell. I've talked to her for like 4 seconds, everyone, but I can already tell we're going to get into a lot of stuff today. And we're really, really excited to talk to her. So welcome to the show, Sophie. We are thrilled to have you with us.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I was like laughing while my mic was on mute. You pronounced aesthetics beautifully. So
Thank
good.
you. Yeah, there was big discussions before we started recording, everyone, of how to appropriately pronounce the word. And I do mean appropriately.
We'll get more into that later.
Yeah. Oh, so welcome to the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're thrilled.
So we always like to start with like a really easy question, just like something, to warm you up. So I know we have you on to have you teach us about how-tos, but if there was any how-to that you wish you had a better understanding how to do to help you live, your best life or most limitless life, what is a how-to that you would like to know how to do?
Two come to mind immediately, and they actually go very much hand in hand. How to have patience and how to be mindful, because slowing down is something I've always struggled with, even before I was a business owner, like even when I was a child, I was in Greek school, all these extracurriculars, trying to get into the best college I could. And patience, like when you own a business or when you're an artist or a freelancer, an influencer, anything that requires a lot of hard work, often the missing factor is just time. You could be doing everything correctly. And really, you need to give yourself some grace and have patience in yourself, the universe, opportunity, however you want to label it. And those are things that, now that I've been in business for 3 years and now that I'm in my 30s, and like I always say, this is my favorite part of aging, is actually coming to terms with, the fruits of my labor, or I'm seeing the fruits of my labor, and I'm coming to terms with the fact that time was the missing factor. And I don't have to be so bonkers all of the time, because I'm doing all the right things. And if my cup is empty, that actually could be detrimental, working too hard, So
Yeah.
those things.
That's fantastic. So I'm curious to hear from you kind of when you're talking about time and like, you're aging and you're coming to terms with things. Do you feel like and I felt this when I turned 40, I wish I had felt it earlier. Do you feel like you are actually getting more patient? Are you feeling like grace is something you're able to give yourself at this point?
Yes. Both myself and others. I've struggled with patience with people who I'm close to. I don't think I've always been quite patient with like clients in that setting.
Yeah.
With my like personal convictions, I've become a lot more patient. I was listening to the episode about negotiation, and that really resonated with me, and how it takes patience to keep the goal in mind and to work towards the goal and maybe not be so reactive. So yes, I feel like with age, I've gotten, and not just age, but like a lot of intentionality and therapy and like talking to people. I've become a lot more patient and had more grace lately with myself and others, for sure.
Yeah. I think just to highlight for everyone, time, intentionality, and therapy, right? Like those are such huge components to any kind of change, whether it's like becoming more patient, becoming kinder with yourself, or even building a business. Like just all of those components have to come into play. You can't just sort of wish it into existence.
Absolutely. Or even work it into existence.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have there been moments where, like, sometimes, most of the times, these things are like super gradual, but every once in a while, there are like these pivotal moments where you kind of like, oh, wait, I get it now. Like, I get that maybe, it really is sort of, it is suddenly paying off, or really they weren't being intentionally cruel. They were just didn't understand, or, and not that it affects you differently internally if somebody is being, obtuse versus cruel, but it's helpful as you understand and you're trying to bring patience to a relationship to understand the difference. Where there are like certain moments that you can look back and say that was when I had I like sort of an aha moment about it, or was it really just very, very gradual?
I mean, definitely both. And there have definitely been so many moments, but the two that come to mind immediately, the first one is, it sounds cheesy, but my wedding. Okay. Like, being gay, it's not always easy. It comes with a lot of baggage. And, fast forward, like, I think I got married maybe like 20 something years after I came out, but I'm sorry, 10 something years. I was in my 20s. So I came out, and then fast forward to my wedding day, I was like, oh my gosh, like everyone I love is here, or almost, not everyone can come to your wedding, and that's a reality.
Yeah.
But like almost everyone I love is here and is just so happy for me. And including people who maybe were not as supportive at first. And that means one of the most important relationships in my life is being celebrated by people whose opinions I really value. Like, I think, we all rebel against people in our lives, against family, and when, we have disagreements, but like ultimately the pain means that you value their opinion, so yeah, it's easy to say like, screw what they think and stuff like that. But like at the end of the day, like relationships are not that simple. It's not that black and white. And like you're allowed to have like some pain and baggage around surrounding your relationships. And even when somebody in your life is telling you something that like you just straight up disagree with, so definitely my wedding was the culmination of like not only all of the planning, but years of patience and work on all of my relationships, The second thing is being a boss. I've never been a supervisor before. As my wife moves up in her career, I'm starting to get a little bit jealous. I'm like, oh, that sounds fun. Like, because I'm kind of competitive and driven, but I skipped all of that. So I went to college. I decided to forego my master's degree and go to beauty school instead, with the explicit intention of opening my own place as soon as possible, which in Jersey legally has to be at least 3 years with your license.
Oh, okay.
So I went back to school with a bunch of kids. I was in my 20s, and like I wasn't feeling like I was in the most an environment full of like-minded people per se. So that was a challenge. And then working as an esthetician had a lot of challenges for me. So finally, when I opened up my own place, I was like, thank goodness, I'm here where I want to be. But then when I decided to take on employees, that was like a whole other challenge that I've never experienced before, because I kind of skipped the whole career development part of my career, to be frank. So, I won't get too specific, but there have been instances where I'm really listening to what a member of my staff is saying, and I try not to get too personal, but personal things come up, like we're a small team. And there have just been moments where I'm like, okay, I am hearing that you have a lot of baggage around a certain issue. And that's why you have like a really specific outlook on it, or a really specific attitude towards it. And even though it's different than my personality, let's say, I've learned to respect where people are coming from. And, there's a part of me that's like, well, it's my business and things should be my way, and, whatever. But also there's another part of me that has had those aha moments and like learned to be more patient as I learn where people who are my subordinates, but like are still human beings, you know what I mean?
Right.
Learning where they're coming from, and, how their baggage impacts like their personalities and the way that they do the job. And like, I've had aha moments that help me like learn to respect that,
Yeah. It sounds to me like, over time, you've been able to sort of build a growth mindset, right? As opposed to the opposite. And that kind of thinking, the growth mindset sort of thinking, is one that allows you to do what you're just talking about, which is to hear other people's opinions and thoughts and concerns, and empathetically talk to them, and yet not get taken over or subsumed by somebody else's baggage, let's call it.
Absolutely.
So I think that's an important point for people to hear, is that having that kind of growth mindset, and we've talked about it on the show, I don't know, so many times, being adaptable, being open, being, able to hear yourself and also listen to others and build boundaries and all those good fun things, really go into having that kind of growth mindset. I'm curious to know if that's something that you kind of developed over time intentionally, if that's something that was important to in your family system growing up. Like, where does that growth mindset come from, and is it something that you saw as you were developing in your earlier years?
Yeah, that's such an interesting question. And if I think back to my childhood, I will say I was always busier than my peers. Which, like, for better or for worse, I'm not
Yep.
sure, but
Yep.
or it's a double-edged sword, right? Pros and cons to every like lifestyle and whatever. But I was in Greek school twice a week as an elementary schooler. That's like 2 hours twice a week and we all hated it. You know what I mean? It was not fun. And that was like, and I had sports and Girl Scouts, and like, I don't know if you've seen My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but when she's like, I don't want to go to Greek school, I want to go to brownies. That was literally me, because I'd be leaving brownies like an hour early to go to this thing that I really didn't want to go to, which was
Right.
Greek school. So I definitely learned like compromise in those situations, and a little bit of discipline as well, like just doing things you don't want to do, because
Yeah.
sometimes like a growth mindset involves like this short-term discomfort for the greater good in the long term, right?
Yep.
Right.
And then I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my career as a high schooler, which like is an absurd idea to begin with.
Right.
But the resolution for me, and I was raised by immigrants and children of immigrants who were very like I had a family member say to me once when I was a kid, you can't go into marketing, Sophie. Marketing is too creative, which is another absurd idea. Which and thankfully I was critical of that, but just to give you some perspective on like this mindset of like, no, stability, like accounting, finance, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, I knew that wasn't right for me, but I also knew that pursuing the arts was something that maybe would be frowned upon. So even though I was very artistic growing up, so I was like, you know what, I'm just going to go to the best college I can get into and go from there. And that getting into Barnard College was like the second instance of me as a child being like, wow, my hard work paid off, so to speak.
Right.
The first instance was marching band. And this is another absurd idea that I had as a kid. I remember so the leaders of the marching band are called drum majors. And we had 2 boy drum majors when I was in 7th grade. It was a 7 through 12 high school. And I remember going up to my band director, Mr. P, shout out. And I was like, Mr. P, can girls be drum majors? And he was like, of course. To me as a 12-year-old, he was like, of course. So I was like, okay. And that planted the seed in my mind. So, we're talking about aha moments. Like I can remember moments where I'm like, okay, this is something to work towards, So, and if it weren't for, I mean, who knows, but if it weren't for Mr. P planting that seed in my mind in that moment, but also me asking the question, and being inquisitive, then who knows if I would have accomplished that goal. But the feeling of accomplishing a long-term goal, like those are the 2 times that I can remember having that feeling and being like, wow, and like actually feeling proud of myself and feeling excited, because I also think I became depressed at a really young age. And I remember that feeling of excitement not being as accessible to me anymore, like in my single digits, and being like, what's up with this?
Yeah.
Like, why am I not getting happy? So anyways, I think like, and thank you, because I'm working through this now.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's great.
Getting that feeling, of accomplishment and excitement from accomplishing those long-term goals actually, in a way, started my addiction is a negative word, but like it made me really chase that feeling continuously throughout my life, because at a young age, I experienced like the fruits of my labor, so to speak,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I think sorry, Tova, I just want to say this one thing and then I'll turn it over to you. But I think as a person who struggled with depression in childhood as well, when you find something that counters that feeling, like immediately, you will continuously seek it, sometimes in an unhealthy way, right?
Yeah,
Some kids turn to
totally.
things that are not good for them. And then sometimes it becomes an unhealthy seeking out of the healthy thing, right? Like there's so many ways it can go. But what I love about what you're saying is the acknowledgement that it took you asking the questions, it took you getting out of your comfort zone, and then also you sort of had to seek out other supports, right? Like Mr. P obviously was a support, and that's fantastic. And so I'm bringing this all up to say to people out there who are listening, you know, these are things we can all do, even like whether we're kids or 45, you can still take on these kinds of actions to help yourself feel better. Like if you are struggling with depression, that's please seek therapy. It's important. But also, there are other things you can do to help move yourself out of those feelings. So I just wanted to highlight that. Tova, you had a question. I interrupted. I'm sorry.
I had a comment first, which is I was also a drum major. So
Oh my
clearly
God,
Meant to
twins.
be.
meant to be my junior and senior year. So that's
I
very
love
exciting.
it. Okay, awesome. I
Yeah.
knew there was more to our relationship. Getting mad at the way men are sitting in meetings.
Oh my
Was
God.
something
All
that
right.
happened,
Just
I think,
aside,
yesterday.
yeah, not to digress totally, but I feel like anyone who listens to this will appreciate this. So the way we didn't even discuss how Sophie and I met, which is part of our amazing, wonderful networking group. And which there have been other people on the show from the group because it's like the best networking group out there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And we were sitting and somebody was discussing a cool product that it's something very cool that they had, but it just happened that it was coming out of the mouth of a man who happened to be a white man. And he was this very like just the worst posture, but it was very like posed bad posture. Like,
Oh no.
I'm so cool. I can like slouch and
Slouch and man spread.
Yes, slouch. Well, his legs were crossed, but in kind of like I'm going to still take up a lot of room.
Yeah. They were spreading.
They
Yeah.
were spreading. And it was just like no one who has ever been in a position to prove themselves has ever sat that way when speaking to a crowd of, I don't know,
Yeah.
25 people.
Yeah.
Like,
No, it was, and he was brand new to the group, might I add. Like he was a guest. Like
yes.
have some, humility. I don't know.
It was interesting.
Yeah.
And once again, it was distracting from the product that he
Right.
was
Talking about.
discussing, which seemed like a very cool product. But I have questions. I have so many questions. We do need to take a quick break. So we're going to take a quick break and then we will be right back with some questions.
Well, hello there, ladies. Are you ready to elevate your life and connect with like-minded souls? Join us every week at the Go Boldly Together weekly Women's Circle, where strength meets sisterhood. Dive into empowering discussions, share your victories, and navigate challenges together. Our circle is a safe space for growth and inspiration. Experience the power of collective wisdom and unleash your full potential. Don't miss out on the transformative energy. Click the link in our show notes or visit us at goboldlyinitiative.com/women's weekly group to learn more about our Go Boldly Circle today. Together, let's embrace the journey of personal development and let's celebrate that unstoppable force within each of us.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. So it sounds like you were driven. You're like, I am going to prove myself. I'm going to get into the best school I can possibly get into, which turns out to be a phenomenal school.
Yeah.
And you are going to then figure out a way, to maybe take the creative artistic spirit in your life and turn it into a career or maybe a job. right? But you're not going to do it in a way where you're like painting a picture. You're going to do it in a way where you can actually like have maybe a business. So maybe I'm connecting dots that weren't there. I guess I'm wondering, how do we get from, drum major Sophie going to Barnard to like esthetician Sophie? Like, what happened?
Yeah. Well, I think college was extremely pivotal for me in many ways, but so I majored in philosophy and women's studies because that's what I was most passionate about. And then I was like, well, I'm really enjoying being in this setting of academia. So maybe I could become a professor. So, I talked to some TAs and they were like, don't do it. And
That's so motivating.
No, I know. And not that I'm ever one to follow directions, but they gave reasons. And I was like, that doesn't sound fun.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, maybe I could go into like administration or student affairs, which sounds a lot more fun. And then I could maybe support students, like the one that I currently am, in their endeavors of inclusivity or the arts or whatever their passions were. And I was applying to master's programs towards the end. Let me rewind, actually. I was friends with other artsy artsy young adults, I should say, who were like film people, musicians, theater people. So one of my really best friends, she became one of my best friends. She was my roommate at the time. And she actually has now passed away. And I don't mean to, put a damper, but I just say that because her memory lives on through my work, through so many things, but my work is one of them, because her name's Corinne. She was in charge of pre-production, including raising money for a student film our senior year. And she raised $500, which, back then, a few years pre-inflation, and for a 21-year-old was like an absurd amount of money. And that money was for me to buy my first makeup kit, and I got to keep the makeup. So that's where the story like really started in like a tangible way. And that film, there was so much drama, and it didn't end up being like super pleasant for either of us, but it's okay, because I got something really important out of it, which was like the tools I needed to start the career that I have now. And at the time, it was just kind of a fun thing. But after I graduated, my then girlfriend, now wife, was really motivating in being like, maybe, you need to find an internship or something that's going to support your long-term career goals, but you're also really passionate about makeup. So let's just get you a part-time job at Sephora or something, because I know that's going to make you happy and help you pursue your side business, because I wanted to keep doing freelance makeup artistry. So she dragged me to the mall and with my resume, and I started working retail while applying to master's programs. And I got into a master's program for student affairs and college administration. I visited it's kind of like match day for med students, but not like, it was like speed dating. And, I got matched with the LGBTQ student center. It was like my dream internship. And then when it came time to commit, it was at the admitted students weekend that I had an epiphany, because they were like, this is a lot of work, y'all. And I was like, I don't know if I want that. I was like, I don't know if I could, because, college was like, again, so pivotal. And like I'm still friends with like, my roommates, plus like the folks who were really there for Corinne when she was sick. Like we all became really close. So like I hold those memories and those people really near and dear to my heart. And I have no regrets, but like, it was also one of the most like anxious and depressed times of my life. And a lot of people, it's not easy. So I didn't want to go back to college, essentially, to do my master's and then work in a college for the rest of my life. It just all hit me that maybe that wasn't it for me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to burn this bridge and go to beauty school, unfortunately. My parents were kind of like, what are you doing? But my girlfriend and my friends were all like, yes, great. You need to be doing this kind of work. Like you have so much to add to the industry. So that was extremely affirming. And now, fast forward, my parents are like actually extremely supportive. And even though I'm in my 30s, I still care what they think. Like,
Forever, right?
So, I got here. It wasn't like a super linear path, but I think like wanting to be an artist and wanting to help people was always kind of like at my core. And then, in college, I started getting really bad acne as well. So learning how to cover the acne was one thing. And then learning how to treat the acne was a passion that started to develop more when I was working retail, because I was like selling those products and kind of helping clients kind of the way I do now. But, I wasn't licensed back then, so I couldn't actually do treatments and stuff. But I was also reading books and just educating myself and being like, wow, like this is so empowering, because I started using the principles that I learned through my like self-education, and they were working, rather than like these silly philosophies that I was learning through retail of like, this body scrub has sea salt and vodka, which is probably terrible for your skin anyways. So I had that critical thinking moment for myself, and I became really passionate because I was like, oh, there's so much bad information out there. And I wanted to become like a resource for people. And then, went to beauty school, and I was like, well, the only way I'm going to do this is if I'm my own boss. Like I can't. so, that's how I got to where I am today. Winding road, but in my mind, it's like, is anyone surprised? Probably not.
Yes.
The way you tell it, it seems like a pretty straight line.
Yeah.
Well, it makes sense, right? Like it all makes sense together. We do need to take another quick break. When we come back, Sophie, I want to, if you're comfortable with it, I'd like you to talk a little bit about adult acne and like sort of how that impacted you as a human to have that experience. And then we can get more into the how-tos of it all. But we need to take a quick break first. So let's do that. And we will be right back, everyone.
Hey, pod friends, it's us again. Looking for a place to collaborate, an opportunity to share your knowledge? Have you been working so hard on a podcast, book, course, product, or retreat? Do you have insights that could light up our podcast? Well, we want to hear from you. We would love to support you in all that you are and do. Join us at Go Boldly Initiative, where we celebrate diverse perspectives and share the wisdom of our incredible community. Whether you're an expert, a hobbyist, or simply love learning, we invite you to reach out with your ideas. Visit our website at goboldlyinitiative.com/podcast guests to pitch the show, or shoot us an email at hello@goboldlyinitiative.com to talk all things collaboration, advertising, and affiliation opportunities. Become part of our growing family. Let's make learning an adventure together.
Okay, so welcome back to the show. Before the break, I was saying if you're comfortable with it, like maybe we could talk a little bit about what having acne did to you, did for you. How did you feel? Like what was that time period like for you?
I love the way you phrase that question, because acne did do something for me in a positive way, even though I hate it and I hate having it.
Yep.
I mean, of course it impacted my self-esteem. Like your face is you to an extent. I mean, I know a lot of people might disagree if they believe in a soul or something like that. I was a philosophy major, so, we could talk about that on another episode.
I know there's so many episodes we could do at this point.
I know. But to me, like, I'm not to be shallow, because like your appearance is superficial, but it's powerful, right? Like, so of course it impacted my self-esteem, and I developed a really bad skin picking habit, which like I still struggle with, and most people with acne struggle with.
Yeah.
And I have acne pretty much all over my body. So sometimes it can be an indicator of like, I wouldn't use the term self-harming, but like just that I need to check in with myself and be like, why am I picking so much? Like, why am I trying to control? Like, what am I exactly trying to extract out of my body? Is it just pus, or is it, TMI, but like,
or no, that's exactly it.
Yeah, is it deeper feelings? I remember like I had a therapist in college and she asked me, "What are you extracting?" And I was like, "Ooh, good question."
Also, stop asking.
No, I know. So, it definitely negatively impacted me and still negatively impacts me, but it's through that struggle that I developed a passion, but also just an entry point into like doing my work in the world. Like I knew I wanted to have an impact always. So also I was never good at science in high school. This is kind of a side note, but like once I entered beauty school, everybody was like, "Oh, chemistry is Sophie's thing. Like Sophie's so good at chemistry." I was like, "Oh, okay." So, I also learned through treating my own acne and becoming an esthetician that like I can do anything. Like I can be good at something. Like sometimes you don't, even in work, like let's say you work in marketing, but you hate the product that you're marketing. You might question, is this for me? But really like you just need an entry point that like resonates with you. And that's what acne was for me on so many levels, becoming better at science, even becoming better at touching people. Like when I was in beauty school, I remember, so I did have a little dramatic moment. Somebody used the D word, the derogatory term for lesbians that I might call myself not on the air, but, and I yelled at her and I was very reactive. I'll give her that. But, nobody had my back, not even the teachers. So that created like a weird dynamic. Like, so obviously I wasn't going to be the best at touching people or being touched because I wasn't getting along with people in beauty school, to be quite frank.
Yeah.
So it felt like high school. And I was like, really? Like, I can't believe this is my life right now. But anyways, so through becoming an esthetician and practicing that art, people now ask me if I'm a massage therapist, which is just miles ahead of where I was with my hands-on skills. Like I was not good at sports. I was never good in like science lab classes, like hands-on. Like I was always like up here, book smart, theoretical. When I worked in a restaurant, like they made fun of me so much for not having life skills as like an early adult, So I remember like becoming an esthetician, like finding confidence in like my touch, my body, my hand-eye coordination, like that was huge. And now I just, again, like I can do anything, maybe not sports, but other sports.
That's okay. What I would imagine, and I'm obviously not an esthetician, I also don't like touching people. And so which is a good sign that I'm right about what I'm about to say. And that is that it takes quite a bit of vulnerability to be willing to have someone touch your face or your body or whatever you're working on. And for you to sort of break that barrier as well. It's a very vulnerable environment to sit in. Also, when you're working with somebody for the first time, they probably didn't come to you because they're like thrilled with how they look, right? Or thrilled with their face or thrilled with their hair or whatever they're coming to you for. They're probably like wanting to change something. And that's a vulnerable place to be in as well. So to have all of that come together, I would imagine is requires quite a bit of trust. And that's a skill that I think, I mean, I come from lots of trauma around this, but I think it takes a lot of work to build and become confident enough to be able to do that. Is there something like when you were growing up, was it like a very tactile family situation? Is there a lot like what does that look like for you?
Well, we are a Greek American family, so I actually would say like we were more touchy-feely than average, and I think that actually was that and like being neurodivergent was part of the reason I got picked on at an early age, maybe. I don't know. It's hard to put my finger on. And this is also like a gay question. People are always like, "Did you always know you were different?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, because I was freaking weird, not because I was 5 years old and attracted to women."
Right.
That's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
So anyways, yeah, I came from like a very like touchy-feely family, but honestly, like I keep relating it to like being bad at sports. Like hands-on was just never my forte, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
But I will say about the trust and vulnerability thing, learning to have boundaries when it comes to other people's baggage, because there's a ton of baggage that comes with like dealing with clients, because wedding days are stressful. Maybe their parents don't support, their engagement. Maybe somebody's transitioning. I do have trans people who come to me, and it's mostly like confidential stuff, so I don't post a
Sure.
lot about people's transitions, or I try to create a safe space. Neurodivergent folks or folks with sensory issues, like I have to, even kids sometimes, like their parents will be like, you'll get used to it, and I'm like, no, I think your kid has sensory issues. Not that I'm a doctor, but like they're having reactions that I would consider like uncommon
Right.
to me fanning their face or something. Like they're freaking out, and they don't have to get used to something.
Yeah. Also boundaries, right? Like kids are
Yeah,
allowed to set physical boundaries around their bodies. So just putting that out
absolutely.
there for anyone listening.
Well,
Yes.
so I guess that's a question that I have. Like, we talk a lot about knowing the difference between when you're uncomfortable, like discomfort, like kind of healthy discomfort, like, okay, this is not, this doesn't feel comfortable, but I'm okay with that because I'm gonna like learn from this and kind of push through. And then that like bad discomfort and being uncomfortable where you're like red flag, like remove myself from this situation. So either for yourself when you're, when you were learning, right, how to touch somebody, or when you're with somebody and you can kind of see them being uncomfortable and you're trying to sort of navigate, like, are they experiencing a feeling of discomfort that I can help them overcome in a really healthy, safe environment? Or like you said, is this a something that for them is potentially more traumatic for some reason that has nothing to do with you because you're lovely, but something is happening. How do you like either for yourself or for the people that you're working with navigate those situations? I don't know if that question makes sense.
No, that's a great question, and
Yeah.
something that I think about a lot. And it's such a work in progress, because just to give you some more background, like an esthetician's license in New Jersey is only 600 hours, which amounts to about a semester. So I didn't learn any psychology. I didn't learn business skills. I barely learned how to do my job. Okay. I learned, how to use 70% alcohol and be compliant with like OSHA standards or whatever.
Right.
So, it's something that I've had to look inward a lot. I've added stuff to like my intake form, just letting new clients know our our services often engage the five senses. Do you have any reservations or special requirements when it comes to having your upper body and face touched? When it comes to certain smells? Have you ever experienced claustrophobia? And more than 9 times out of 10, people are just like, no, massage me, do all the things. But, or it's a parent who like just doesn't complete that part of the intake form, and I'm finding out in the moment. I'm really big on consent. Obviously, if you're coming to me, you're going to have your face touched, but like certain things that new clients may not be familiar with, I'm just like, are you comfortable with having your upper body massaged? Simple question, you know. And if I notice somebody's really uncomfortable, let's say it's an electrical modality, which can be really scary and sometimes make scary noises. Um, I've had a teenager once whose mom was really insistent because it kills bacteria and she has a lot of acne. And I said, well, why don't we try it on I said, everybody calm down, because it did get a little heated. I said, why don't we try it on the back of your hand? Or with makeup, people are really sensitive about the way you make their face look, and rightfully so, because I believe your face like kind of is your identity. So I always say, it's not a tattoo, I can take it off. Like I'm always just like, I remain calm because to
Yeah.
me it's not a big deal, but still holding space for the client, it might be a big deal, or they might be having it could be triggering, worst case, as Tova was saying, like there could be trauma
Right.
around whatever experience they're having, whether it be sensory or whether it be the way they see themselves. And having grace for myself too, that I'm not perfect. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm just doing the best I can with the tools I have, and just being really clear about my intentions with clients, and open communication,
Yeah.
that's kind of how I navigate it.
So I want to get a little bit into the how-tos of it all. And I guess my first question along that thought process is, what do you think like the number one thing people should think about when they are looking for an esthetician or seeking services? Like, what should they be thinking about, like upfront?
There are so many things. And I'm tempted to say safety, but I'll go with a more fun answer, which is uh does their vibe resonate with you? Because as we've said on this call, like it's a very vulnerable thing, being touched, but also having somebody create a representation of you through makeup or hair removal or whatever. Like it's your body and how you look, and physical touch is being incorporated, right? So I think being comfortable with the person is super important. And for the majority of my clients, that's like they will read my reviews and be like, okay, she's legit. Like they want to go to somebody legit. That's their priority. But for some people who like maybe don't have skin issues that are as problematic, or like they're super chill about how their makeup is done, I don't know. I can't think of clients who, maybe because I'm used to my clients, but it could be like, and the person you have on your wedding day, because I do mostly wedding makeup, kind of sets the tone. The makeup artist helps set the tone because it's one of the first people you deal with first thing in the morning on
Yeah.
your wedding day. So I really think like getting along with the person and feeling comfortable and safe with the person is the most important thing.
Yeah. I think that's a great piece of advice for people out there.
Awesome.
We don't love the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, but we do like it when it comes to the how-tos. So we said, what should you do? Is there anything like a red flag that if you hear someone tell a story about whether it's wedding makeup or, oh, I went to this esthetician, that you're just like internally going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like run, run, run. Like that you don't want to say anything because you're trying to be polite, but now you can tell everybody, on the episode now, so you can warn us.
Thank you for assuming that I'm polite. Because I normally will just go out and say it.
You'll be like, you should have run.
If they come with dirty makeup brushes, I can't tell you how many people have messaged me and been like, "Oh, I'm a bridesmaid in a wedding," and they snuck a picture of the brushes, and I'm like, "Ew." Also, just like a nasty attitude. Not to be basic, but like I don't know. Yeah, the job is hard, but it's also like you have to be passionate to do this job. So I don't know. It's rare that I'm like dreading dealing with a client, or that I like really struggle with my patience. And again, like I'm an impatient person, but I'm just so passionate about this job. And I really think, okay, like if the person maybe said they were going to get back to you tomorrow, but it took them 2 days, that's not a red flag. This person just has too much on their plate. But if they were like nasty when you followed up with them, like that's a red flag. They should be they should be carrying a positive attitude into your wedding day and like into your regular appointments where they're touching you. Because not every esthetician is a makeup artist, and not every makeup artist is an esthetician. So when I'm talking about like, what I do, which is like, you're going to have a relationship with me in theory from like your first facial all the way to your wedding day. And then after that too. So like somebody with like a good attitude. And I don't even think I'm the most positive person in the world, but like people,
You've got a vibe though. It's like it's a vibe, and it's good.
Thank
It's
you.
like, it's fun, and a healthy dose of, not, I don't know what the right word is, not being superficial and fake.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, but I do want to ask, like, when it comes to skincare, so I have an 11-year-old daughter. So this, like, I am like, you're not going to Sephora and buying all the things for aging skin. Like, what are you doing?
Good. Yeah.
But what is one thing that people should, like, what's the best tip you have for people to do when it comes to skincare? And what's the thing that you're like, please stop doing this?
Sure. So my number one tip would be sunscreen, because if you aren't protecting your skin, what's the point of doing all of the corrective work?
I'm
And
failing.
also, I think sunscreen, like that's a universal piece of advice
Yeah.
too, like for all ages and for all skin types. Of course, like you need to find the right product for you that doesn't break you out, that feels nice to apply, all of those things.
Yeah.
But, skin cancer is like the most preventable form of cancer. So, skin cancer is not always an emergency, but people do die from skin cancer. So, it's just a really good habit to be in, both for like your body and the cosmetic element of it. The number one cause of wrinkles is sun damage. And if you're protecting your skin from the sun, you're already doing a lot of the work. And I know like sunscreen is like not the sexiest anti-aging cream product, but it's the most effective.
Right.
So
It's better than water. I'm like, I know I need to drink more water.
Oh,
Stop
I'm sitting over here going like, oh, damn it. Why don't I put more sunscreen on?
Oh no, I do that.
Yeah,
and
no,
I
you
put
get
it on my hands because I put my hands up against my face and I
love that.
sunscreen is the
And
one
when
thing.
you're driving and stuff, you are getting sun damage on your hands. So like your neck, your under eyes, and the backs of your hands are usually going to get the wrinkliest first.
Yep.
So that's a great habit. And then like a don't, it's hard because like everybody's skin is so different, but I would say don't be so hard on yourself. Like don't compare yourself to images, like filtered images and filtered videos. Like we're human, we have pores. I as an esthetician do not have perfect skin at all, and I actually think that's what makes me a good esthetician. So yeah, like don't compare yourself to others. Like some people who have naturally beautiful skin could use Dove soap, you know what I'm saying? Like, so there's no point in comparing your journey to theirs.
Right.
And certainly not somebody who uses filters, like, some of your favorite influencers, for
Right.
example.
I think that's advice for life too. Like,
Yeah.
not just for skincare. I think that's like good life advice. Everybody's journey is different.
Any specific advice so I have 3 boys, and so they haven't been clamoring to go to Sephora.
Oh my God.
Although, I do have UGG slippers, and my son, they actually fit me. And I'm like, if your feet want to grow real fast, that'd be great. Cause these are fantastic. And I would never spend that much money on a pair of slippers. So like, if you just want to like grow out of them real fast, that'd be great. But, any tips for moms like Riley who have daughters or sons who want to go to Sephora and do want to buy something? Like, what is something that is appropriate and healthy and fun for them to buy so they can, be cool, but is not damaging, detrimental, or like a bajillion dollars?
Yeah, no, I love that you're keeping it positive, because I think self-care and self-maintenance are wonderful things to engage in at any age. And I think it's really cool that kids are into skincare, but they, don't, I'm trying to look younger. You're already young. Like you don't need glycolic acid. And I don't know how technical you can get with a kid. This is where maybe I have a knowledge gap, but like just for your knowledge too, and however you want to translate this to your kids, our skin cells, the turnover slows down as we age. They already have the most optimal turnover, the fastest turnover they're ever going to have in their lives. So anti-aging products, more often than not, will speed up that turnover. There's no need to do that. They want to keep their skin on their face, right? So there's literally, it's doing more harm than good. And what I would say is definitely sunscreen is a great practice. And I would just focus on hygiene and the ritual of it as well. So a gentle cleanser is going to be great. And if the child has acne, then, they do need to speed up their turnover a little bit. So that would be the exception. And you could incorporate things like a salicylic acid or a benzoyl peroxide, which comes with some stipulation. So I wouldn't do that without the guidance of an esthetician or a dermatologist. But generally speaking, a gentle cleanser is fantastic. It washes off their face. So certain ingredients like fragrances or oils aren't going to be the biggest deal in a cleanser. So as long as it's fun for them to use and it doesn't contain a lot of like stripping alcohols. So if you look at the ingredients, denatured alcohol, I would say, is like the biggest thing to avoid. because that can be quite drying and lead to issues that it's like we were trying to take care of our skin, not strip it, you know?
Right.
A sunscreen moisturizer during the day, and then maybe a really lightweight moisturizer at night, because if the moisturizer is too heavy, then that could lead to pimples and stuff. And again, we're going backwards. We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So there are certain brands at Sephora that are going to be like a little bit more on the affordable side, like First Aid Beauty or something like that. I haven't worked in those retail spaces in a long time, and we use like professional grade skincare in the aesthetic space. So we work with like completely different lines that might have like a teen acne or like a teen, like even like just more gentle options within it. But yeah, all in all, I would say a gentle cleanser, a lightweight moisturizer, and a sunscreen are the best place to start. And if the child has acne, then with the guidance of a professional, you can talk about more results-driven products to work in there.
I love it. I can convey that advice. That's great.
Okay.
So my last question is really like, what do you think the biggest hurdle or roadblock that people have to seeking out, help for skin conditions and skin concerns? Like, what do you think is holding people back from coming to see you, for instance, or, someone who does things that are similar to what you do? Like, what gets in the way for people?
I think it's overwhelm. I mean, obviously there are the obvious things like budget and whatnot.
Yeah, of course.
I think it's overwhelm. Like when you, especially kids now, are like missing out on this awkward phase, which I hear is very developmentally like detrimental, right? But anyway, but we all like are being bombarded with social media advertisements and influencers trying to influence us or sharing their favorite thing that works for their skin, but they're not an expert, so they're not maybe conveying it in the most helpful way. There's just too much out there. There's a lot out there, and everybody's skin is so different, and everybody's skin is different on each day. I always say skincare is like cooking. Like everybody has a different oven. And also with cooking, you can kind of like add your own stuff in. Whereas with baking, you have to be very exact. Skincare is not like baking. So, there's a creative, kind of in the same way that like math can be creative when you're trying to like resolve equations or whatever, you kind of have to guess and check and all of that. There is a creative element to it. And if you're not an expert, it's like, where do I begin? So a lot of my clients, when they're new and they first come in, one of the first menu items when you go to my booking link is, I don't know which facial to book, with a shrug emoji. And 9 times out of 10, people will choose that. Thank you. So, and then when they come in, they'll be like, I love that I could choose that because it's so stressful picking the service when I've never been here before. And what if I come in and they don't allow me to change it? I just don't know how it works. So I just kind of like take that guesswork out. I always recommend people familiarize themselves with the menu if like budget is an issue, for example. But other than that, I say just come in, for that option, I block out an hour and 45 minutes. So we have plenty of time to do a more results driven treatment if that's what you need. And we'll talk about it, when you get there. And I also make myself available to my clients, like through DMs or through text messages. And like my clients know I don't answer on Mondays, like those sorts of things. But I think like it really does require a relationship with the professional. Unfortunately, you're not always going to get that with a doctor. Not that you shouldn't listen. I'm very pro medicine and you should always listen to your doctor, but like a lot of people do come to me and they're like frustrated with dermatologists, and that's just like an unfortunate reality. Or if you go to like a Hand and Stone or Massage Envy, like I know some fabulous estheticians who work for chains, but unfortunately the way those businesses are structured, it's kind of impossible to have a relationship with your esthetician there. Whereas like when you go to an independently owned place, my advice is a lot more accessible to my clients. So I've tried to resolve this issue of overwhelm and like not knowing what to do after my treatment or before my treatment, or like, when can I get my eyebrows waxed? Because I do waxing too. So I'm like, okay, well, you don't have to coordinate between all your different estheticians because I do everything, So, a lot of what I do in my work is trying to resolve that issue of overwhelm so people can just come in and start getting the help they need,
Yeah, I definitely struggle with that. Like that would hold me back from going to see someone. It's like, I don't know anything about what I'm supposed to be getting. How am I supposed to know what my skin needs? At least
Yeah.
out, like right up front. So I think that's a great solution. And I hope other people do the same thing. Cause it also, I think, allows a broader range of people to come in, right? And to seek whatever it is they need, whether it's just, beautifying or if there's like real like deeper skin conditions going on that are impacting their self-esteem and feelings of value and things like that. So I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and also not everybody knows, like me as a hair client, maybe I'll book something and it's the totally incorrect thing for what I actually wanted. And I only learned that through the consultation. So yeah, you could see adult acne facial and that resonates with you, but actually you come in and what you have isn't acne. So
Right.
you know what? Like, just come in and we'll talk is my philosophy.
I like it.
That's fantastic. I know that we could talk about, I don't know, so many more things, and I would love to talk about many more things,
Oh my
but
gosh. Yeah.
we should probably wrap it up and get to our quick response questions,
Okay.
and then just have you come back to talk about more things another time. I think that's the only solution.
Would love that.
So the way our quick response questions work is I will ask you a question and you will answer it briefly, and I cannot do a follow-up. So it's just sort of like quick question and then you answer it, and it's very easy. So what do you do when you first get up in the morning?
Have an existential crisis.
Best answer we've ever gotten. Also most relatable.
Yeah, not gonna sugarcoat it.
Fair enough. What is your favorite movie?
My cousin Vinny.
Nice.
Oh God.
Oh. What is in your purse?
Whatever lipstick I'm wearing that day. So today it's YSL Candy Glaze. My face case, which is my very first product that I created. So this is a little case with a mirror and just like little touch-up products, or if I take off my lashes throughout the night, I have like a mini lash glue in here as well. I have all these things here in case I needed to touch up on the call. This is like my favorite little contraption because it's a hairbrush with like some boar bristle in there. So it smooths the hair. It doesn't just brush the hair. So if I'm like feeling frizzy or whatever, I'm like, oh yes. And it fits in my pocket or my purse. And a ton of receipts because as a business owner, I am the worst at tracking my expenses as I go. So you can imagine how stressed I am this tax season. So yeah, that's what I have.
Fun.
So I am going to break our rule just one time about making comments, because I know that to plug you and what you do, because when you do a wedding, you give the face case to the brides, right?
Yes. Yep. So sometimes people buy these for their bridesmaids. I've had people purchase them as holiday gifts. I've had other makeup artists purchase them to use them for their touch-up kits. But each of my brides or marriers gets a face case as part of their makeup service. So thank you for plugging that. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Love it.
That is the only time we've ever broken the rule.
I'm honored.
Okay. Number 4, who was your teen heartthrob or crush?
Orlando Bloom. Yeah. The long hair might have had something to do with it.
He's Greek too, right?
Is he? Oh God, now I feel like a bad Greek for not knowing that.
Wait,
but
or maybe
I don't know.
I may have just made that up.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Maybe he's just Greek in my head. It's totally possible.
He does have that look to
Yeah.
him. Absolutely.
I also give people backstories that I don't know.
Yeah.
They're true. And lastly, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
My dad always says, just because something is easy for you doesn't mean it's easy for everyone else. And the impact of this is twofold. Number 1, valuing my own expertise and skills more. And number 2, having grace and compassion for people. When something's easy to me, just like you can't just be like, well, why don't they get it? Because things are not always easy just because they come easy to you. So
I give that advice as in like directive to both of my children all the time.
That's wonderful.
A repeat. So yay for your dad, but also like it's on repeat in our house. I might as well just write it down and put it everywhere so that my children like start being nicer about other people not knowing things they know.
Well, I hope it sticks with them for life. Like
I do too. I feel better now that you've said that. I'm like, oh, maybe
Yeah.
one day they'll be like, this is the best advice.
I love it.
Yeah,
Maybe
that's
it'll
great.
sink in.
We'll see. Sophie, we love having you on the show. And I'm not kidding. I think we're going to have to ask you back for other conversations. Before we go, where can people find you if they want to book with you, if they want to follow you on socials? Like, where are you at?
Thank you so much. So on Instagram, I have my studio's Instagram, which is Space Esthetics NJ. That's aesthetics without the A, so it starts with an E. And our website is, you can go to facespaceaesthetics.com or facespacenj.com, facespaceaestheticsnj.com, whatever's the easiest to type, it'll all go there. And
Nice.
That's where you can learn more about our services and about me and my staff and book us. And then my personal Instagram is Sophie the Esthetician MUA, all one word.
Excellent. All right. Well, we will put that in the show notes for everyone. And of course, when this episode is live, we're going to tag you and people will be able to find you. And hopefully they will follow along and learn more about what you do and use your services if they're local or even if they're not local. We loved having you on. It was really, really fun talking to you and getting to know you a little better. Thank you for sharing, some stuff that's probably a little hard to talk about sometimes. We appreciate you being willing to do that. So thanks again for being on the show. And Tovah, unless you have something else to add?
No.
All right. I think we will wrap it up for the week. Following along, we will be back next week with another how-to. I don't know which one yet because I can't remember where we're at in the season, but I'm sure it will be a good one. Until then, everyone, have a fabulous, fabulous week.
Thanks so much for listening to We Go Boldly podcast. We know you're busy and we love spending time with you.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, let us know. Head to Apple Podcasts right now to rate and review our show. While you're there, be sure to click that subscribe button.
Want more us time? Follow us on all the socials at Go Boldly Together.
Want even more us time? As in all the coaching pizzazz. Find us at goboldlyinitiative.com for all the info.
We will be back with more excitement, research, and deep thoughts next week.
Until then, keep on being the bold, brave, amazing people we know you already are.